Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. In today's video, we're talking about what your 10th house planets say about you. And in case you missed it, we're doing a series on my channel where we talk about the 12 houses of your chart and what it means when you have certain planets sitting in those houses. And make sure you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the rest of the series where we'll talk about houses 11 and 12. And the first 9 houses are in a playlist linked down below. So what exactly does the 10th house represent? The 10th house represents your public image, your reputation, and how you're perceived by the world. And these 10th house placements you have can show how you operate in the world. What is your public face in the world? How do you approach public situations? And as most of you guys do know, the 10th house represents your career. It also represents your livelihood, what you do for a living, and the legacy you leave behind. So in each timestamp, we'll mainly talk about how what planet in your 10th house influences your public image, your reputation, your career, as well as your legacy, and the public face you show to the world. So you can watch this video for your whole sign chart, your sidereal chart, Western chart, Vedic chart, any chart that you feel most comfortable with. You can watch this video for that chart. So if you have your sun sitting in the 10th house of your chart, then what this says about you is that you're somebody who is ambitious, you're a leader, and you might be very goal-oriented. When it comes to the face that you show in the world and how you operate in a public setting, you're somebody that might be very visible in the world. Somebody with a title, somebody with status, somebody who has a public image, or you can be a public figure, literally. Since the sun is the strongest in the 10th house, what this means for you is that the positive traits of the sun can be more easily expressed through your personality. So you're somebody who could be a natural leader, someone who's brave, someone who is courageous. And generally speaking, it can give a dominant personality. You can be someone who is naturally great at asserting yourself, bringing your identity into a public setting, and being someone who is easily recognized by others. So when it comes to your reputation and how others perceive you, you're somebody who is perceived as respectable. You're perceived as noble, someone who's righteous, somebody who other people can easily look up to and follow behind. And professionally speaking, you could be someone who's at the top of your field. When it comes to your career, your livelihood, and what you do for a living, you're someone who might be gravitated towards leadership positions. You can work in the government, for example. You could work in an industry where you are the boss, the leader. You're somebody who might be even an entrepreneur, own their own business, for example. And when it comes to your legacy and the impact you have on the world, especially for the long term, you're somebody that might be known for being important, somebody who was prestigious, who had a position of prestige, somebody who had status, authority. You can be known as someone who's important in the world, well known in the world, somebody who had an authority position. So if the moon is sitting in the 10th house of your chart, then what this says about you is that you approach the world in an intuitive way. So when it comes to the traits about you that are expressed publicly, you're somebody that might be seen as sensitive, intuitive, someone who's feminine or emotional. With moon being a sensitive planet, it can be hard for you to hide your emotions with this placement. Or it could be hard for you to hide how you truly feel. You're somebody who can have your heart on display, your emotions on display, and so the way you approach things and handle public situations can be more sensitive, more intuitive, and people can kind of perceive you in that sense. So when it comes to your reputation at large and how people perceive you on a public scale, you can be seen as someone who is empathetic, someone who is caring, someone who's sensitive. You might be known for helping others or serving others or being someone who is supportive. And so when it comes to your livelihood, your career, what you do for a living, you might find yourself in a career that is related to helping other people. Maybe you like to support people. You're in a career that is related to the hospitality industry. And without getting too deep into a list of careers, generally speaking, you might find yourself in an industry related to women, children, real estate, or property. Lastly, when it comes to your legacy and the long-term impact you have on the world, you're somebody who might be known for being empathetic. You might be remembered as someone who was helpful, and people might have a fond or nostalgic memory of you. So if Mercury is in your 10th house, then what this says about you is that your approach to the world is one that is strategic. And when it comes to the traits about you that are expressed publicly to the world, you're somebody who might express their intelligence, express their skillfulness. You could be someone who likes to express your humor or wit as well. So when it comes to your reputation and how people perceive you, you can be someone who's seen as versatile, somebody who has a lot of different skills. Maybe you express a broad skill set and people see this kind of dynamic energy about you. As for your career / livelihood and what you do for a living, you can find yourself in the media or communications industry. And without getting too deep into the list of careers, you can be someone in the marketing industry, someone in an industry where you have to write, you have to speak, you have to use use logistical or even verbal skills. So when it comes to your legacy and the long-term reputation you leave behind you, with this placement, you might be known for being someone who was inventive, someone who was skillful, someone who created something new or contributed something intelligent to their career or profession, and you also might be known for being someone who was productive or efficient in their career. So if you have Venus sitting in your 10th house, then what this says about you is that you approach the world and public situations in a very diplomatic or tactful manner. So when it comes to the traits that you express to the world, you can be someone who expresses a very balanced public persona. Maybe you like to express this theme of grace, of poise, of being someone who's seen as very diplomatic. And so how that feeds into your reputation is that people can see you as someone who is pleasant. This can generally give a good reputation. People see you as someone they can get along with, someone they admire. And other than that, they can see you as someone who is elegant. Maybe they see you as someone who is luxurious or wealthy, someone who has a lot of poise or grace about them. So when it comes to your career, you might find yourself in an industry related to beauty or aesthetics. And for some people, you might even feel attracted to the entertainment industry. In some way or another, whatever industry you find yourself in, you can be someone who expresses their art. You express your creativity, you do something that is artistic, and you might literally be an artist. And then as for your reputation in the long run and how people perceive you in terms of your legacy, you can be remembered as someone that contributed art to the world. Maybe you contributed your creativity, you created something that was beautiful, you created something that was aesthetic or important, and it leaves a long-lasting impression on the public. And so if Mars is in your 10th house, then what this says about you is that you're somebody who is ambitious, independent, and goal-oriented. The qualities about yourself that you might like to express in a public setting is that maybe you express this essence of dominance. Maybe you express this essence of toughness, being someone who is assertive, who likes to get what they want, someone who can be ruthless or very ambitious overall. So given this energy influencing your reputation, people can see you as someone who likes to get what they want, someone who is a high achiever, someone who is a go-getter. And in some cases, you might have a reputation for being someone who is quarrelsome or isn't a stranger to conflict. So when it comes to your career, your livelihood, what you do for a living, you might find yourself in an industry where you have to fight for something. Maybe you fight for something metaphorically, you fight for justice, maybe you fight for something literally, where you're like a EMT or a firefighter. But generally speaking, there can be an element of aggressiveness or conflict or even using your physical body in your career. And the other main layer to your career that you might find as a theme in your life is that you're someone who likes to be independent in their career. Maybe you like to be someone who's in charge. Maybe you're the boss of something, the manager of something, and you're someone who likes to be an entrepreneur, for example, or be just generally independent in your profession. So how this energy affects your legacy and your long-term reputation overall is that you might be remembered as someone who was a fighter, someone who was assertive, someone who went after what they wanted, and you could be remembered as someone who broke barriers, someone who kind of set the record for something. Maybe you do something that is very pivotal or kind of groundbreaking in your profession. So you do become known or remembered as someone who did break those barriers, someone who did start something new, someone who was kind of like an innovator or led some kind of movement. So if you have Jupiter sitting in your 10th house, then what this says about you is that you approach the world in public situations in a very expansive way. And when it comes to the qualities about yourself you like to express in a public manner, maybe you like to express qualities of honesty. You express your opinion, your spiritual beliefs, your philosophical beliefs, and overall you might have a very righteous disposition in a public sense. So how that influences your reputation and your public image is that people can see you as someone who is trustworthy, someone who speaks the truth, someone who is noble or righteous. And people might even see you as a role model, someone who is noble, respectable. People can often look up to you or see you like a guru of some sort. And this can also give a reputation that precedes itself. You can be someone with a very large reputation, big reputation, even bigger than you think it is. You might even impact or influence people on a global scale. And as for your career, your livelihood, what you do for a living, you might find yourself attracted to industries related to teaching, related to spirituality. You can be someone who works in the justice field, for example. Any field where you're expressing truth or advising people, you might find yourself in that industry. And so how that impacts your legacy and your long-term reputation is that you might be remembered as someone who brought truth to the world, remembered as someone who taught something, who brought some sort of justice to the world. You can have this very righteous reputation and be known for someone who did righteous things, honest things, or someone who is very noble and giving to the world. So if Saturn is sitting in your 10th house, then what this says about you is that you're someone who approaches the world in public settings in a very pragmatic way. The qualities that you express outwardly to the world can be qualities related to practicality. Maybe you like to express your more authoritative side to the world, you express your more serious side to the world. So given this mature and serious energy you might express to the world, you express publicly. When it comes to your reputation, people might know you for that. They might know you as someone who is mature, responsible. They can see you as an advisor, a leader, someone who is an authority figure. So when it comes to your livelihood, your career, what you might do for a living, you can find yourself in a position of authority. Maybe you are the leader, the manager of something, and especially like a corporate career might interest you. And if not, the list can go on with the kind of careers you might find yourself in. But generally speaking, you can be in the government. You can be in politics. Any sort of career where you are regulating society, you might feel attracted to that kind of profession. And how this Saturnian energy might impact your legacy and your long-term reputation is that you might be remembered as someone who was an authority figure. And ultimately, you might be known for being someone who was the judge of something or the authority figure on some sort of topic, subject, or industry. So if you have Rahu, aka the North Node, sitting in your 10th house, then what this says about you is that you're somebody who is very ambitious. Rahu in the 10th can be a unique placement in the sense that it might give you a really strong focus or obsession even with your career, with your profession, and you might even be obsessed or very concerned with creating a name for yourself, creating a big reputation for yourself, and this can be sort of like a karmic lesson you learn throughout your life, something you might build over time. But generally speaking, it can give this inclination or urge to want to be known, famous, or important. So publicly, how this is perceived in terms of your reputation and public image, people can see you as someone who is really ambitious, forthright, someone who goes after what they want, and it can give a reputation of being known for doing something different, being innovative, being sort of like that game-changing sort of person, especially in your profession. This can give your reputation the theme of being an overachiever as well. And when it comes to your career and your livelihood and what you might do for a living, you can do something where it might give you some sort of importance, do something that gives you status in the world. Maybe makes you recognizable, makes you famous. You can kind of prioritize that when it comes to the profession you do choose. But specifically speaking, you can do something that is related to the tech industry, social media. Generally speaking, you might find yourself doing something that is unique in a way, or doing something that kind of deviates from the traditional work model path. So then how that kind of leaks into your legacy and your long-term reputation is that you might be known for or remembered as someone who kind of broke the pattern in some way. You're kind of like that game-changing person who does something different in their career, in their profession. Maybe you change the mold in some way of your specific profession. You kind of shift the tradition, you change the pattern, you do something that is quite different in your career, and then you become known for that in terms of your legacy and the kind of imprint you leave on the world. So when it comes to KETU, aka the South Node, being in your 10th house, what this says about you is that when it comes to your career, your public image, your reputation, you might feel sort of ambivalent or detached towards those things. So therefore, you can kind of operate in the world in a public manner, in public situations, in an indifferent way, or in a way that isn't too careful. Maybe you feel sort of careless about certain public situations, your career, reputation, and have a indifferent sort of attitude towards that. So as it pertains to your reputation and how you're perceived publicly, people can see you as someone who is spiritual, for example, someone who is mysterious. This can kind of give maybe like a hidden reputation, a reputation that people might not know too much about. And going back to this theme of ambivalence or indifference, people can see you as someone who is detached, who is indifferent, someone who's kind of maybe a loner as well, or someone people don't know that much. So when it comes to your livelihood, your career, and what you do for a living, you can find yourself in a service industry, maybe an industry related to charity, related to working with people who are underprivileged, for example. Social work is an industry you might find yourself in. And another avenue you might find yourself is research, or doing things related to public records, or doing something where you have to store or house information and research that information at some point. How that impacts your legacy and the long-term reputation you leave behind is that you might be remembered as someone who changed things in your career. Maybe you did things kind of unconventionally, or you did something that was just not expected or traditional within your profession. And generally speaking, people might remember you for being someone who was non-traditional or non-conformist. So if you have Pluto sitting in your 10th house, then what this says about you is that you approach the world with a very psychological mindset, and you might approach public situations in a strategic manner. Therefore, the qualities about yourself that you like to express publicly is your dominance, your power. Maybe you like to express a certain fierceness in the world. And for most people, this might be even kind of unconscious, where you kind of express this natural dominance, power, and people kind of perceive it as that without you really trying to. So then how that leads into your reputation and public image is that people can see you as someone who is powerful, someone who does have some sort of position in society that is important. And again, this can kind of be unconscious, where even if you don't have a position of power, or necessarily a title or something like that, people still perceive you as powerful or influential. And for some people, this can lead to a controversial reputation. This Plutonic energy can kind of give the effect of extremes. So people might perceive you in an extremely good way or extremely bad way, or people can extremely love you, extremely hate you. There is that kind of seesaw of emotions you kind of evoke in people. But generally speaking, it kind of gives controversy. It can give something about your reputation that is notorious, and it might not always give the most righteous energy when it comes to how people perceive you. This can kind of cause negative situations to happen in terms of your reputation, where people might start rumors about you or slander you, or those kind of things are possible with this placement. Not everyone will experience that, but that is possible with Pluto being in your 10th house of reputation. But overall, though, people might see you as someone who is influential, someone who does have a lot of power, maybe someone who's really dominant, and they can feel really influenced by you even if you don't try that hard. When it comes to your livelihood, your career, and what you might do for a living, you can find yourself in a position of power in your profession. Maybe you do something where you are the leader, you are the spokesperson, maybe you're somebody who's like the manager. This dominant energy might manifest in your career as a leadership position. And more specifically, you might have a career that is taboo, a career that is unconventional, controversial. Maybe there's something about your career that is mysterious that people don't really know about, or you can do something and people are kind of like, what does she do? What does he do? It's kind of unknown to the public. But whatever career you do find yourself in, you can be in a powerful position within that profession. Then when it comes to your legacy and the long-term reputation you leave behind, you're somebody that might be known or remembered for being influential, someone who was powerful, someone who was transformational to their profession or their industry. And you could even be remembered as someone who was controversial, someone who was notorious. You kind of have this reputation that precedes you, and even after a long period of time, your long-term reputation holds this essence of influence and power. So if you have Neptune sitting in your 10th house, then what this says about you is that you might approach the world in a very elusive way. The qualities about you that are expressed outwardly in public settings, in a public situation, is that you might like to express the energy of mystery. Maybe you're someone who's seen as mysterious. You can express this energy of spirituality, be someone who's spiritual and have like your spiritual ideas and beliefs on display. And you also might have your creativity on display as well and express this creative, artistic, elusive side of you. And because of these outward qualities that you do express, when it comes to your reputation, your public image, people can perceive you as someone who is mysterious, someone who's kind of unknowable, and someone who can be confusing, where people can't really put you in a box, or they can't put you in a certain archetype. You're kind of someone who is elusive in the sense that you elude social boundaries, or you kind of elude the status quo. And even if you're someone who knows a lot of people know who you are, there is sort of like that unknowable quality about you, or there's still something that is unknown about you. So given this mystery that surrounds you, you might experience people spreading rumors about you or gossip about you because there's kind of a unclear consensus of maybe the truth. And so that can happen sometimes if you have this placement, and depending on the sign it's in, gossip or rumors can be a theme with your reputation. However, when it comes to your livelihood, your career, and what you do for a living, you might be someone who works in the spiritual industry. You work in an industry related to service where you help people. And another major theme is glamour or creativity, working in sort of like an artistic field, doing something creative or glamorous in your chosen profession. Another industry that might attract you is the pharmaceutical industry, maybe the spirits industry, like alcohol industry. Those are things that relate back to Neptune, so you might find yourself in a job or career that is related to that. So lastly, when it comes to your legacy and your long-term reputation, you might be remembered as someone who was creative, someone who was mysterious and mystical. You can kind of have that legacy or long-term reputation where people still kind of whisper about you, or there's kind of like that unknowable energy where they don't really know what you did, or are kind of confused about where you came from, or kind of confused about what it was that you really produced or gave to the world. And you're someone who might be talked about for being creative or artistic, spiritual, or someone who was elusive or even mysterious. So if you have Uranus sitting in your 10th house, then what this says about you is that you approach the world in an innovative way. When it comes to the qualities you express in a public manner, in public situations, you might be someone who expresses their inner genius. You express this uniqueness about you. You might have a certain unique flair that people really take note of. Given that, when it comes to your reputation and how people perceive you and your public image, people can see you as someone who's sort of like the anomaly, someone who is kind of different from the rest, someone who's unique. You do things differently. You can be like the innovator sort of person, someone who's sort of like a rebel. And generally speaking, you can have an unpredictable sort of reputation. This could be the kind of reputation which really intrigues people. Even though it is a little bit confusing or unpredictable or really not seen before, people really take interest in what you're doing, especially professionally, and there's something very intriguing about you to other people in terms of your reputation. So when it comes to your livelihood, your career, what you might do for a living, you might find yourself in the tech industry, maybe even the social media industry. Anything dealing with technology, dealing with social media might attract you. Generally speaking, when it comes to kind of like the format of your career and the main themes you might experience, despite what career you choose, you can be someone who does something different in your career. You might do something that breaks the status quo. You might do something that is really different. You can do something that's really innovative and kind of changes the kind of scope or the way people see a certain profession. Overall, there is that futuristic theme in essence in the career you do choose. So given what we know about your reputation and the themes you express to the public, and just generally how you act in a public manner, when it comes to your legacy and the long-term reputation you might leave behind you, you might be remembered as someone who was a game changer. And especially in your profession and your industry of choice, you can be the game changer of that. You can just be someone who kind of broke the pattern of something, broke the tradition, did something different, and you might ultimately be known as the innovator. With that being said, tell us your placements down below. Thank you guys for watching this video, and follow me on Instagram, AstroKit, as well as TikTok, AstroKit, and I'll see you guys in my next video.